She was on attempt 22 when they killed her. Amara Osi, 9 years old, sitting cross-legged on the observation deck of the colony ship Meridian's Promise. A purple pencil in her hand and a paper journal on her knee, pressing careful circles into the page, while 400 light-years of unfiltered cosmos blazed through the viewport in front of her. She'd been trying to draw the stars for 40 minutes. She hadn't gotten them right yet. She didn't mind. Her father always said that trying was the point. She never got to attempt 23. The weapon that killed her, her father, her mother, 409 other souls, a choir from Sao Paulo, a grandmother who'd been too old for a new world and bought a ticket anyway, was logged in the Veth Hegemony's border installation records as a calibration strike. A targeting error. The Meridian's Promise had drifted too close to a contested corridor. The automated system had misidentified it, and by the time anyone could intervene, 412 people were debris. The Galactic Council sent Earth a communique. They expressed regret. They proposed a tribunal. They offered preferential tariff rates on 3 categories of hegemony exports as a gesture of goodwill. Arch-Arbiter Zeleny of the Veth, the woman who wrote it, 60 years a diplomat, brilliant at finding the lever that made even the most furious species sit back down and start talking about trade, transmitted the message and waited for the strongly worded letter she knew was coming. She waited 6 days. No letter came. What came instead was silence. Not grieving silence, not stunned silence, the silence of 400 million humans across a dozen star systems, going dark on every subspace frequency, simultaneously, without a public argument, or a recorded vote, or a single leaked memo. As if something had been decided so fundamentally, so completely, that there was simply nothing left to say about it. On the 6th day, Zeleny's intelligence director brought her the probe data from the edge of human space. She stared at it for a long time without speaking. Every human shipyard running at emergency capacity. Vessels that hadn't left dry dock in a decade, gone. Weapons platforms that existed as quiet line items in defense budgets nobody discussed in polite company. Activated, armed, moving in formation so precise it could only mean one thing. "They're not writing back," her director said quietly. "They're answering." On the 7th day, one transmission cut across every frequency in Council space. No diplomatic headers. No authentication codes. 11 words, spoken by Admiral Yuki Sato from the bridge of the warship Consequence, translated simultaneously into every language spoken by every species in the Galactic Council. "We are coming. There will be no negotiation. Move aside or don't." Then 1,200 warships dropped out of FTL. They were not beautiful ships. The Veth built their warships like sculptures, long, graceful things, elegant instruments of organized death. Humans built theirs the way they had always built weapons, for a function so pure it became its own terrible aesthetic. Massive hulls plated for punishment. Weapons arrays developed by a species that had spent 10,000 years in an arms race with itself, and had gotten extraordinarily good at the underlying mathematics. Every vessel carried the pragmatic scarring of engineers who understood that a warship might be hit and must survive it, and the enemy must not. On Sato's console, pinned where she would see it on every forward glance, was a drawing, recovered from the Meridian's Promise's automated data backup. A child's journal entry uploaded the morning before the ship was destroyed, routine as a heartbeat. Colored pencil, slightly smudged, a purple and gold sky with 2 moons. The world Amara Ose had been sailing toward. Attempt 22, the best one yet. The Veth Defense Fleet moved to intercept. 300 warships, experienced commanders, 7 engagements in the last century, and 7 victories. Their projections were favorable. The human fleet was larger, but size wasn't the deciding factor. And the humans were coming in grief-hot, emotion running high, which made them dangerous in the short term, but sloppy in the long one. This was the last miscalculation the Veth fleet commander ever made in his career. He had confused grief with chaos. He had never considered what happens when a species takes everything it feels. Every gram of fury, every image of a civilian ship burning, every thought of a girl who never got to finish her drawing. And instead of letting it make them wild, uses it as fuel, packs it down into something cold and dense and absolutely terrifyingly purposeful. The engagement lasted 41 minutes. The human fleet didn't charge. It executed. Every movement pre-calculated, every shot placed, every Veth maneuver answered with a counter that had clearly been planned before the first weapon fired. When a destroyer took a full broadside and went dark, its flanking ships didn't waver, covered the gap, pressed forward. The line held its shape as if the destroyer had never existed. When the Veth commander broadcast a ceasefire request, no response came. When he tried to retreat, he found that geometry had already been closed around him. In the council chamber, 60 species watched on live feeds, and not one of them spoke. When it was over, Sato transmitted one final message. This is the new law. For every human life taken without cause, 10 of your warships burn. For every colony touched, a fleet answers. There is no tribunal. There is no trade deal. There is only this, and you will learn it. Because she was looking at the sensor feeds, at 1,200 warships, still holding formation, patient as a geological process. And she was beginning to understand the shape of an error, so large it had its own weather. The room went quiet when the Dravari representative rose. The Dravari were old. Their civilization predated the council by 8,000 years. Their representative, Maeva, had been trying to tell this room something for 6 decades, in memos and reports and subcommittee sessions that got tabled and forgotten. She did not say, "I told you so." She simply looked at the feeds, and at Zelen, and began. "You studied humans for 60 years, she said. You studied their wars, their fleet tonnage, their weapons yields. You decided they were a manageable threat, a young species, emotional, ultimately rational once you moved them past the feelings and into the arithmetic." She paused. "You never studied their funerals." The chamber was very still. Humans are a death world species. Their planet spent 4 billion years trying to kill them, and they survived it by becoming the most effective cooperative force their corner of the galaxy had ever seen. You knew this. It was in the reports. What the reports could not convey, what no report written by those who have never been prey can convey, is the thing underneath all of it. The reason the violence exists. The thing it has always been in service of. She let the silence breathe. They are not violent because they are cruel. Most of the time they are almost aggressively kind. Beings who cry at the deaths of animals they've never met, who form attachments to objects, who will share their last meal with a stranger. But underneath all of that softness is something that 4 billion years of survival built into them at a level deeper than culture, deeper than law, deeper than civilization itself. Her voice didn't rise, it got quieter, heavier. You do not harm what they love, and you never, under any circumstances, harm a child. That is not a rule for them. It is the foundation on which every rule they have ever written is built. Zelen said, "We offered them reparations. A tribunal." "You offered them arithmetic," Maeva said. "For something that has no arithmetic. You killed a child and sent them a trade deal. You looked at 412 human lives and wrote calibration strike, and thought that language would contain what you had done." She shook her head. "You cannot trade deal your way out of telling every parent alive that their child is an acceptable margin of error. There is no careful enough language. There is no sufficiently generous tariff rate. You reached past every negotiation, past every treaty, past 60 years of diplomacy, all the way down to the thing that was there before any of it existed, and you pulled the pin." No one spoke. Outside, in the dark between stars, 1,200 warships held their position and waited. The Meridian Accords were signed on the 9th day. Not negotiated, given, signed as given, because the fleet was still out there, and Sato had not recalled a single ship, and the Council had done the arithmetic, and found it unambiguous. Among the terms, a monument, built at the entrance to the council station, paid for by the Veth hegemony in full public accounting. Not to the fallen, not to humanity's loss, to her. Amara Osei, 9 years old, who had packed 17 books, who had brought a stuffed bear named Captain, who had kept a paper journal because her mother said ideas needed weight, and had spent every clear evening pressing a purple pencil against the page, trying attempt after attempt to get the stars right. The monument is her drawing, cast in bronze the size of a wall, every line preserved, the smudges, the erasures, the spot near the middle cluster where she pressed harder, because she could feel herself almost getting it. Purple sky, gold horizon, 2 moons, the world she never got to see. Below it, in every language spoken in the galaxy, we remember what you cost us. We remember what you were owed. This is the price of forgetting. Every species admitted to the council is brought here first. Before the ceremonies, before the seat assignments, before anyone places a treaty in front of them to sign. They stand in front of that bronze sky, and they are told the whole story. The ship, the girl, the calibration strike, the silence, the fleet, the 41 minutes. And then they are told the truth about humanity. Not the version from the threat assessments. Not the version in the xenological surveys. The real one. These beings will be your finest allies. They will trade with you and work beside you and share their science and their music and their food and their grief and their laughter. They will be generous in ways that will surprise you, patient in ways that will humble you, and warm in ways that no species that evolved on a killing world has any right to be. But know this. Know it the way you know the distance between stars, not as a fact you learned, but as a fact you feel. They love fiercely. They love past reason. They love in a way that has no ceiling and accepts no arithmetic and will pay any cost and has been paying costs since before they had language to name what they were paying them for. Do not mistake that love for softness. Do not mistake their patience for weakness. And whatever border dispute or political miscalculation or moment of arrogance tempts you toward the easy violence of the powerful against the small, do not touch what they love. You will not like what wakes up, and you will not get a second chance to learn.